Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to In Ohio Country Today. Joining me now is Steve Queen. And Steve, former employee of Trupointe, but currently still doing basically the same job when it comes to safety. We're in Sidney, Ohio at the Trupointe location, and there's a new addition here to this Trupointe location that you're involved in, Steve.
Yes, it is. It's our Jeep Seaway chapter, our Grain Safety Training Center, Dan, and I'm the Grain Safety Training Coordinator for this group.
Well, tell us a little bit about what's happening here today.
What we're doing with this here, Dan, is the grain industry. We sponsor the training for firefighters that will respond to a on-farm incident, emergency rescue incident, and for commercial grain facilities as well. It's a 4-day, 32-hour class. And firefighters are trained on the proper techniques for confined space, high-angle rescue, grain engulfment rescue, and things like that.
Steve, tell us a little bit about Jeeps, first off. What does that stand for?
That's a Grain Elevator and Processor Society. That's a national individual membership for those of us in the grain industry. The national chapter provides us with a wonderful resources for safety training, perhaps, for marketing, maintenance, all the different things, Dan, that fall within our grain industry. They supply us with great resources where we can go and get a hold of the information that we need to have.
Now, speaking about resources, it takes more than just one organization to put something like this together. Tell us about the planning stages. What brought this to fruition, and who are the parties involved?
Well, with my safety professional career, I got involved with this up in the state of Michigan, Dan, and I learned the proper way of training our firefighters, as we mentioned. But when I saw the extent and the value of this training, I thought this is what we need to do back here in Ohio. We need to train our rescuers for our grain facilities and our on-farm rescues as well. So got on the phone to all the different suppliers that we use in agriculture, and that's what you see here today. This is all the equipment that was donated by the people on the sign behind us, and we've got a wonderful facility here, and it'll continue to grow in the future.
Joining us now is George Lovell, and George is actively involved in training these firefighters here and individuals that come from a variety of different co-ops, not just Trupointe. Tell us some of the training exercises that you have going on here, George.
We did quite a few exercises here today. We did some grain engulfments where we took the individuals in and showed them how the people get engulfed in grain and went through a small process and how to do a rescue operation on them. And then we also did some confined space operations, showing people how to do proper entry into a confined space to include confined space permits, making sure that they're on the proper tag lines, in harnesses, and they're operating in pairs before they go into these confined spaces. We also do a 32-hour rope class where we're teaching people how to get people down from heights. So if something happens on the top of an elevator, we're showing people how to get them down from those great heights.
You know, one of the things that always happens is when it comes to farming, our farming accidents. It's one of the things that's just part of the job, and unfortunately there are some hazards along the way. And grain engulfment just seems to be one of those things that if you don't get to it right away, it becomes deadly.
Exactly. There's a lot of things that happen to get to the point where there is the engulfment. There's a lot of things that happen, bad things that happen to get to that point. So we try to prevent those things from happening to get us to that point where there's an engulfment, and then once it happens, we show people how to get out of those engulfment scenarios.
You know, most people who have gone through these training exercises will talk about the pressure and how it grows from the moment you get your feet in all the way up to your entire body, but how little involvement as far as the engulfment means very little mobility, correct?
Yes, there's a lot of...
It doesn't take much grain to stop you from moving, is what I'm saying.
That's absolutely correct. Once the grain gets above your knees, roughly 2 to 3 inches above your knees, you become stuck. If you think about the way the human body jumps, we flex our knees and we extend ourselves up and we jump upward in that motion. So once we lose that ability, we're pretty much stuck inside the grain and we're at the mercy of the grain. Hopefully we're working in pairs and someone can stop the grain from flowing at that point to get some help to you.
You know, in some cases, too, it only takes one other person to save you, and having this kind of experience means the difference between life and death, basically, right, George?
Absolutely. We're promoting working in pairs, a 2-in, 2-out rule, that someone is always in there watching the other person doing some work. So to start that 911 process and stop those things from happening.
George, it just seems like you just really can't put a price tag on this kind of training exercise. How long does it take to bring somebody in and get them trained on these types of engulfment exercises and some of the other rescue exercises that you have?
Well, we're teaching a 32-hour class this week, so 4 days we're covering a gamut of things that's going to help somebody from the basics all the way up to the more advanced stuff, so to get somebody out of one of these situations.
And is there some kind of certification that goes along with this for the organizations that are involved?
Absolutely. You'll get a certification for a work safety and work rescue scenario once we're done with this.
Yeah, before we let you go, George, how often do these organizations, or how often should they participate in retraining once they have that certification?
It should be done on a yearly basis, making sure that they're keeping these skill sets fresh, and it keeps them working safe when they're inside these environments. Once they become lax and forget these skill sets that we teach them, they have a tendency to drift away from them and go back into their bad habits. So we reinforce that on a yearly basis to reinforce those good working ethics for them.
So, Steve, there's a lot of people involved that put this facility together. Who are they?
Well, we've got here, Dan, we've got Trupointe Cooperative who gave us this facility to build this training center. Brock Grain Bins donated a grain bin for us to use for farm rescue operations. Custom Agri Systems out of Napoleon, Ohio donated a grain leg and a nice stairway up to the grain engulfment simulator that GSI had donated to our facility. We've got Sidney. They had donated the auger that takes the grain from the grain engulfment simulator away. We've got Area Electric. They have supplied all the electrical contracting that it took to put this together. The Andersons contributed equipment to our grain engulfment simulator as well. The Sidney Fire Department, we couldn't do this without Sidney. They allow us to use their training room for the first day, Dan. That's got about 6 hours of in-classroom training. Town and Country Co-op. Their maintenance crew came up here and they helped us put together all the grain bin and the rescue tube, and then of course SATRA, Safety and Tech Rescue Association. These are the professional trainers that come in here and train our firefighters to the level of this. And then my employer, Eden Farmers Co-op, donating the tripod that you see up here, all the handrail that's here, and then my time involved with coordinating all this.
Well, it sounds like a very worthwhile project and something that's going to have long-term effects when it comes to safety on the farm. Steve, if people want more information, where do they go?
Yeah, they can get a hold of me directly. I can be contacted at Eden Farmers Co-op in Eden, Ohio. They can contact any of their local grain elevators, Dan. Local grain elevators have all this information, and they can get a hold of me, and I can get the information to their local fire department or to their companies, and they can do that as well.
And if you'd like more information, you can always check us out on the web at InOhioCountry.com. We'll be back with more right after this.